bank. There were a lot of brazen criminal acts, and it's a very small faction. I will tell you that you know, of the 10,000 protesters there on Monday, we were talking about 400 that were really troublesome. But those same 400 are still in town. And when they get cranked up and decide to do some damage, they can. And so the city police department decided, after several observations of people with weapons, people with feces and urine in the crowd, that this was the type of, there were enough individuals in the crowd that could cause problems that some action had to be taken. And so I don't think you can police always for the best in the crowd. You have to police for the worst in the crowd. You mentioned you knew these 400 roughly around who came in from around the country. How did you know them? How did you track them? Well, when I say we know them, we followed our Welcoming Committee members to many cities around the country. We consulted with the terrorism task force in those cities. We received information, etc. But as they started arriving, we were able to identify those that were here. In what ways? Well, a variety of investigative ways that we did that. Did you have infiltrators? Yes, we did. That was Ramsey County Sheriff. We also asked him if those infiltrators were paid, and he said yes. That was Ramsey County Sheriff Bob Fletcher. Well, on Wednesday, prosecutors formally charged 8 members of the RNC Welcoming Committee with conspiracy to riot and furtherance of terrorism. The 8 activists are believed to be the first people ever charged under the 2002 Minnesota version of the Federal Patriot Act. The activists face up to 7.5 years in prison. On Thursday, other members of the RNC Welcoming Committee spoke to the media for the first time. The group, along with the Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign, held a news conference at their convergence space to discuss their group and the charges against the so-called RNC-8.
My name is William Gillis. That's William, G-I-L-L-I-S. I've been organizing with the Welcoming Committee for the last 2 years, and I am, in fact, an anarchist. I believe that government is organized crime. I want to see a world of anarchy without domination, without thugs, without warlords, without tyrants, and without politicians. And as an American, I believe in actively resisting those who would rule us all. The brutality and the lies of the state this week are not a surprise, but they are still deplorable. Police kick down doors with guns drawn on families with their children at dinner time. Reporters and the media at large have been repeatedly targeted for repression. Activists have been abducted off the street in unmarked vans, and political prisoners held without access to medical attention. The state has never really bothered with ethical justifications for its violence, but now we see that the agents of the law don't even bother with internal consistency, ignoring the few rights they have pledged not to violate. Sheriff Bob Fletcher has unleashed a degree of repression that should embarrass and anger us all.
My name is Nancy Rosh Gilman. That's R-A-A-S-C-H-G-I-L-M-A-N. I'm a lifelong resident of St. Paul, and I am a nonviolence trainer. I've been working extensively in the global justice movement since 1999, and I have been doing training and activism for social change since 1978, so 30 years now. I want to pick up on what Celia said about there are no terrorists up here. There are no terrorists in the Ramsey County Jail. There are terrorists in the Excel Center. There are terrorists in the White House. And that's why we organized these protests. The house raids that we saw in Minneapolis and St. Paul this week are very similar to the house raids that have been carried on by our Marines in Iraq and in Afghanistan and in other places around the world. The government cannot carry on a repressive foreign policy without it coming home to roost in the United States as well, and that's what we're seeing this week. Not only in the repression that's been targeted towards us, but more generally, ongoingly, we have the conditions that are caused by the neoliberal agenda, lack of affordable health care, criminalization of immigration, and gentrification of New Orleans instead of true reconstruction and returning New Orleans to the people who used to live there before the hurricane. So when the people who are directly responsible for these acts of abuses of power come to the Twin Cities, to my hometown of St. Paul, I need to speak up. I owe it to my friends in other countries. I owe it to the people of New Orleans. I owe it to Native Americans. I owe it to everyone. And that's what I've done. I have a responsibility here. Now, my age and my background would have probably led me to organize with the coalition to march on the RNC and Stop the War, which had a legal, permitted, peaceful march on Monday. And I personally feel very happy that that march happened. I feel proud that 10,000 people marched in the streets of my town, St. Paul, in protest of the Republicans. And I'm very glad that went off well. I made a personal choice not to organize with the coalition to march on the RNC and Stop the War. Rather, I chose to organize with the Welcoming Committee. And I've been doing that for 18 months. I believe in my capacity and my identity as nonviolence trainer and as pacifist. I believe that the limits of what we talk, the kinds of tactics that we talk about when we think of nonviolent direct action need to expand. We need to escalate in view of the rather serious crisis that our country is facing. We need to improve our ways of non-cooperation. We need to take it further than it has been taken so far, and that's why I organized with the RNC Welcoming Committee. I'm interested in expanding and improving the kind of nonviolent direct action that we do.
My name is Shamako Noble. I'm president and executive director of Hip Hop Congress, and I'm also a member of the Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign. S-H-A-M-A-K-O. Last name, N-O-B-L-E. We're not out here because we just want to complain. We're not out here because we just want to create chaos or ruckus. We're out here because people are dying. People are dying. This is not a game. Why does everyone think this is a game? Why do these politicians think this is a game? Why does the sheriff think this is a game? Why does the mayor think this is a game? This is not a game. Quote me on that. This is as real gets. They are manipulating. They are lying, they are cheating, and unfortunately, they are using the media as their pawns to do so. And we can only go so far. We can only write a press release so well. That's right. We can only craft our message so clearly. At one point, there's not much more we can do. Now, I think I've said this in 2 different press conferences, and I'll say it one more time because it doesn't seem like it's sinking in. We're in a country that has the and believe me, I just want to clarify something. I'm a proud American. I love America. I've been all over this country. I love the people of America. I love the people over here. They're Americans. I know you might not like that. It might bother you. But they're just as much a part of our country as anybody else. So this is not some sort of anti-American, oh, I'm all upset kind of commentary here. But the reality of the situation is that we are in a country with a history of political repression. It's very, I mean, I'm not making this up. You know what I mean? Like there's an entire and I'm not trying to detract from what happened today either. But if you think that what's happening today is separate from the entire history of this country, I don't know what to tell you. I don't even know what I can do with that. Because the reality of the situation is, you only have to ask yourself one simple question. Who has the power and the legacy to put $50 million on the table to put fences all around the streets of a city that the people have paid for? Period.
It's interesting that after hearing everything that's been said, the questions are about violence on the protesters' side, when really the hurt that was done in the streets, Did any of the protesters shoot rubber bullets at the police? Did any of the protesters fire concussion grenades at human beings to explode right next to them? I mean, I think that the questions here are way off, and people aren't looking in the right place. That's all.
The definition of violence itself is very slippery. In some cases, property destruction is considered violence, and in some cases it's not considered violence by the very people that I work with the most closely in the peace and justice community. The definition of violence itself is slippery.